Till now, we have seen the two main causes behind the rise of fascism. First was the Italian public and its discontentment towards the Treaty of Versailles and the overall peace settlement, as they felt that Italy did not receive enough from the war as it expected that it would. The second thing which we saw was the rampant economic crisis which Italy faced after the war and the Italian government's inefficiency to deal with it. Now, these two causes aside, there are some other causes which also led to the rise of fascism, which are also interconnected, as we will see. So let us now continue with the rise of fascism and its various causes. So we start off with the inefficient and corrupt democratic government that Italy had. To understand this, we have to look briefly at the political structure of Italy. Till the year 1900, Italy was an absolute monarchy, with the king holding all power. In the year 1900, Italy was changed into a constitutional monarchy, where a parliament came up, took most of the political powers, and reduced the king to the role of a constitutional monarch. However, for the next decade, the king was able to influence Italian politics to a significant level. And also the leaders who were running the Italian democratic process were too weak to really run the show. It was only in the year 1910 when Italy could finally achieve its dream of a democracy. But soon Italy was dragged into the First World War, and when a war cabinet came up, the democratic processes were put in the shadow. So finally, when the war came to an end, did Italy get its parliamentary government, where Italy finally saw a parliamentary government only in the interwar period or the period after the First World War. So as we can understand, Italy's experience with parliamentary government or democracy itself was rather new, and democracy was thus an experiment in Italy. Now every man in Italy was allowed the right to vote, and the people put all their hopes and expectations in this parliamentary government. But problems popped up from the very first election after the First World War. You see, in the very first election after the First World War, not a single political party was able to achieve a majority of votes. And without a majority of votes, a party cannot form a government. And if no party gets a majority, who will form the government? Finally, a solution was reached where the six major parties of Italy were able to form a coalition government, where all the six parties come together, and only then could they form the majority. Therefore, when the government was finally created, it was not led by one party, but by six different parties having their own ambitions, own ideologies, and own processes. Now, what was the outcome? Well, imagine you are sitting in a train compartment, and your compartment is being pulled by six different engines which are going towards six different directions. Now, six engines would definitely mean 6 times more power, right? So are you going faster? On the contrary, you are going nowhere, because all these six engines or all these six people are pulling this one person in six different directions, where the output therefore is zero, because one person's effort to pull is being reduced by the other person's effort to pull. So therefore the output of your train journey would also be zero, and so was the case of the Italian government. The Italian government, being led by a six-party coalition, was in effect ineffective. So you see, the governments were inefficient because it had no political process and agreement, as all parties wanted their own thing. So of these six parties, the Prime Minister was selected in turns, one after the other. But these terms were very short. Now in Italy at this time, there was a very popular saying that a Prime Minister's term expires faster before the inkpot on the Prime Minister's desk dries out. So you can understand that these terms are very short. And the Prime Ministers who came up never had the time to really settle in and get some actual work done. So this is why these particular governments were very ineffective, and the people were frustrated by these incredibly short terms where no work was actually done, and by the time a prime minister was able to settle in, his term expired, and the people were now longing for a person who does not have to give up office so early and can stay in one place and hold all the executive authority to actually get work done. Now, apart from the inefficiency of the governments, these governments, some of them were also extremely corrupt, especially the governments under Prime Minister Nithi and Prime Minister Giolitti. Now, the term of Prime Minister Giolitti, or Giovanni Giolitti as his name was, is particularly important to show a case. Now, Giovanni Giolitti served as Prime Minister for 5 terms. So, you must now think that when a person serves 5 terms, he must be a very evil politician, right? Well, his terms were noted by countless scandals, payment crises, overall economic collapse, pointless wars in Africa that were fought off, which were termed to be imperialist, aggressive suppression of the socialists, and overall inefficiency. Now, in this picture, you can see a caricature which is depicting a particular scandal from his time. So, you can see that Prime Minister Giolitti over here is taking money of the National Bank of Italy, which is the Bank of Italy which holds the people's money. Well, this scandal was that the Giovanni-led government was actually embezzling or stealing public funds from the National Bank of Italy by calling them government expenditure. And this particular scandal clearly shows how corrupt his tenure or his term was. But despite all these scandals and accusations, you would be surprised to find out that Giovanni Giolitti is often considered to be the most able and powerful prime minister in the interwar period of Italy. Now, if he was the most powerful and able prime minister, who was the worst? So this was the condition of Italy and the Italian government during the interwar period, and you can understand how inefficient and corrupt these governments were. Now when the people saw that the very government that they put all their hopes and expectations in, this democratic government itself is so inefficient and corrupt, they thought that it perhaps it's time to go back to our past and bring back the absolute monarchy which Italy had before the year 1900. But over here also the Italian public found a problem. You see, the existing king of Italy, who was the constitutional monarch, was King Victor Emmanuel III. Now, Victor Emmanuel III was a very weak ruler and was considered to be politically incapable, and he was reduced to a mere figurehead or a puppet in the hands of the government. So they realized that if they put the entirety of Italy and Italian politics in the hands of this person, Italy would further be led towards catastrophe. So even this option of going back to absolute monarchy could not suffice the needs of the people. They need another option now. So can you answer this question? Who was the king of Italy in the interwar period? Was it King George III? Was it King Victor Emmanuel III? Was it King Wilhelm II? Or was it King Nicholas V? The correct answer is King Victor Emmanuel III. So what the people of Italy really needed right now was an able leader, a powerful one who was persuasive and a person who could single-handedly reduce corruption in Italy and also create stability in the politics. In simple words, they wanted a person who would again make Italy into the paradise they seem to miss so much. Now one person rose above all and promised to be this leader. We already have met this person. Can you tell me who that was? That is correct. It happened to be Benito Mussolini. Now Mussolini was exactly the leader which the people wanted. So the people realized that they could no longer trust the existing democracy, and nor could they go back to the monarchy or the absolute monarchy. So they thought, why stop there? Why not go back to the glory of the ancient Roman times? Because that is exactly what Mussolini and his fascism promised to bring back Italy to. Thus Mussolini promised that he would bring back the glory of the Roman Empire and he would make Italy into a power that everyone notices. And people started supporting him left and right. Now in this ordeal to find popular support for his fascist movement, Mussolini found an unexpected ally. So you see, Mussolini received funding from the capitalists and the industrialists, or the people who held the capital. Now, why is that? Is it because even the capitalists and the industrialists were fed up with the corruption of the government? Well, yes, indeed. But they were more concerned that the workers and the laborers were also fed up with the government. Now, why is that? Is this because the industrialists and the workers are now working together to bring Mussolini to power? If only. Well, you see that the capitalists and the industrialists had their own interest in this particular condition. They thought that this public dissatisfaction, particularly by the laborers and the industrial workers, would bring about a socialist revolution in Italy, just like the socialist revolution which took place in Russia. So they feared that if this happened, a socialist government and a socialist state would be set up in Italy, which would confiscate their property, because a socialist state believes in the abolition of private property. This made the capitalists and the industrialists extremely fearful. In this situation, we also see that the socialist and the communist parties of Italy are also trying to bring forward a similar socialist revolution in Italy. And this was adding on to the threat which the capitalists felt from this. So now they thought that neither can they support the existing inefficient democracy, nor can they go back to the absolute monarchy. But if they do not do anything right now, the public would bring forward a socialist revolution which would end up in them losing all their property. So they now needed a man who would save them from the situation. And again, guess who that man was? Mussolini, of course. Mussolini assured them that their property and their interests would be looked after if they support the fascist movement. Because if you remember, a fascist state is a corporate state which also happens to look into the interests of the corporate owners and does not abolish private property. That is why we see the capitalists and the industrialists who feared the public support of socialism and of course were fed up with the corruption of the government, finally funded Mussolini and his fascist movement. This gave Mussolini the much needed capital to really make his movement widespread. So now we see that Mussolini has the support of the public, and he also has the funding and the financing from the upper classes of society. This was enough fuel to really catapult Mussolini and his fascist movement all the way to the upper echelons of Italian politics. Now let us see another cause behind the rise of fascism in Italy, and that involves the League of Nations. Does the name League of Nations ring a bell for you? Well, we already have seen what the League of Nations was. Primarily, the League of Nations was an organization formed after the end of the First World War, and it was formed to achieve international cooperation between nations. It had one very lofty aim, and that aim was to maintain world peace. And that was to be done by bringing nations together and making them cooperate and work together instead of having them declare war on each other. But then the question comes up, how does a League of Nations, an organization aimed to maintain world peace, lead to the rise of a totalitarian ideology like fascism? That is because the League of Nations failed in its purpose, which led to the rise of fascism in Italy. So the League of Nations thus failed because of various reasons. But one particular cause was that it could not understand the sentiments and the frustrations of the people. The League of Nations felt that world peace can only be achieved if countries are kept in harmony. But world peace is not a mere political concept. It's not something which can only be achieved by the countries. World peace can be properly achieved if the people are happy. And the League of Nations failed to understand the aspirations of the people. The League never realized that the people of Italy are actually discontented with what is going on, and the Treaty of Versailles never really made them happy. This particular thing further weakened the League of Nations. Now, the people of Italy never really accepted the League of Nations. This is because they considered it to be an allied symbol. And the allied nations were the ones who the people of Italy felt had cheated Italy in the war, as it did not give them what they were promised. So League of Nations was thus never received in a good manner by the Italians. And they always felt that this allied agent or this allied lapdog is not there to look after the interests of the people of Italy. And that is why they considered this particular organization ineffective and biased towards the Western countries, namely Britain, France, and USA. Now, all this led to the weakening of the League of Nations, and it went to such a level where the League of Nations could not stop the rise of Mussolini and fascism in Italy, and could not even stop the establishment of a fascist government in Italy. Now, soon enough, Mussolini will go on to invade Abyssinia, which is a country in northern Africa. Now, Abyssinia happened to be a League member, but the League could do nothing to stop this particular invasion. So often it is said that not only did a weak League let Mussolini come up to power more easily, Mussolini's actions in turn led to the ultimate failure of the League itself. You see, in this particular caricature which says that a man who took the lid off, we can see that Mussolini is taking the lid off and some demons are coming out. This is because it's often said that when Mussolini launched the invasion of Abyssinia and when the League was unable to do anything about it, the powerlessness of the League was reflected all across the world. People finally realized that the League really has no political power. Mussolini continued on his actions of imperialism and did the ultimate thing of leaving or quitting the League. This led other nations to also give up on the League. So thus, in many ways, Mussolini really was the person who took the lid off and let the demons of war out into the world again. So we can understand that the failure of the League of Nations might not be a cause of the rise of fascism, but because the League was failing, it was unable to stop the rise of fascism. And this itself led to the rise of fascism in a much more broader manner without any obstructions and oppositions from the League, as it should have done, as Mussolini showed every indication to break the mandate of the League and cause a war in Europe once again. Now finally, we look at the rise of totalitarian ideologies that were taking place in Europe and particularly Italy at this time, and how this led to the rise of fascism. Now you see, we already have discussed how the philosophies and the works of Hegel and Nietzsche were selectively interpreted to really make up the fabric of fascism. Now, we will get to the selective part a little bit later, but the philosophies of Hegel and Nietzsche were quite popular in Italy even before fascism as an ideology emerged. Now, of these two philosophical thinkers, Hegel was incredibly popular in Italy. His followers were called the Hegelians, and it was mostly the nationalist leaders of Italy who subscribed to the ideals of Hegel. So you see that the Hegelians justified an authoritarian regime by taking context from Hegel's arguments or from his own works, namely his works on freedom and authority. So what the Hegelians said was that true power should always be concentrated into the hands of one able man or a totalitarian leader. And they did this by taking citations from Hegel's works itself, again in a selective manner, where the nationalist leaders went through these texts and only selected whatever was fitting their nationalist interests. And to strengthen the validity of these points and these ideologies, these leaders and the Hegelians also linked it to Italy's history, namely the rich past of ancient Rome or classical Rome. So we can clearly understand that this is nothing but propaganda. And propaganda was the best friend and still happens to be the best friend of aggressive nationalism and a core tool in making totalitarian ideologies popular. Now to know more about propaganda, what it is and what it does, you can click on the link below to access the iDictionary feature. So thus we can see that these Hegelians are now propagating these ideologies, and these Hegelians mostly comprise of the nationalist leaders of Italy. They are appearing before the public and making fiery speeches which say that they require an authoritarian leader. They require a person who controls all power and whose word is the law, and that is the kind of person who can bring Italy back to paradise. Now, the people of Italy, deplorable and dissatisfied with the government as they were, simply did not take time to rationalize what these leaders were saying and took everything that the leaders were giving at face value. This is because they simply were too frustrated with the existing government and badly wanted a change. So they were influenced by the irrational and the anti-intellectual thoughts of Italian nationalists such as Alfred Rocco, as you can see him in the picture. So whatever Alfred Rocco said in his fiery speeches, all the quotations, the content, the statistics, that barely mattered. In the end, what Alfred Rocco said was that power has to be achieved, power can only be achieved by force. People did not even pay attention to the statistics. They simply were too enamored by this concept of power, and they were willing to do anything to win this power even by force and to give up any liberty that they might have to get stability and power for Italy once again. Now, all this led the people to finally start to justify dictatorships because they found dictatorships to be incredibly efficient, and they thought a dictatorship can really bring order to a state. Now, they were influenced by the Bolshevik Russian government, where after the Russian Revolution, the Bolshevik government was using force to bring order into the Russian society. And that is something which the people of Italy felt even they require to finally bring Italy back to prosperity. Thus, you can understand that the people of Italy are in effect justifying dictatorships. But how can a person justify a dictatorship? Is efficiency really that important when it comes at the cost of your own rights and liberties? Well, that just shows how desperate the people of Italy were to finally get some political order and stability. They were fed up with the corruption, with the inefficiency, with the unemployment, the economic crisis, the constant shift of blame, the constant demonstrations that they had to put up, all the strikes and all the riots. While they looked at other countries after the war which were thriving and were prosperous, they felt that they need to do something to bring that kind of order into their lives. They were looking for a leader who can have all the power in his hand and can truly function with that power and can bring Italy to an elevated level. So the people of Italy were fed up with the government and they were miserable. And that is when Mussolini came in. Mussolini was exactly what the people of Italy wanted. A person or a leader who does not mind showing emotions of frustration, anger, and aggression. A leader who does not mind standing up for the rights of the people and to really get the people what they want and what bothers them. And finally, a leader who is willing to stay with the people of Italy for as long as it takes and get the work done. Or at least that is what Mussolini promised that he would do. You see, Mussolini was a brilliant orator. People used to come from far and wide just to hear him speak for hours. And every single time, they were left with more and more admiration for the man. He gave them, or he promised them, everything that the people of Italy wanted, as every dictator would do. A dictator always promises what the people want because they know exactly what the people want and they can capitalize on it. So the people of Italy then felt that Mussolini was truly the need of the hour for them, and they were ready to get behind his charisma. They were ready to hand Italy over to him and also give up their own liberties for the prosperity of the country. Little did they know that Mussolini's promises were hollow. But at this time, this immense admiration for Mussolini and unopposed support for him helped Mussolini truly form a fascist government, which you will see in the subsequent videos. Thus, in this video, we were able to successfully conclude all the remaining causes which led to the rise of fascism in Italy. We saw how all these causes took place in the interwar period, as this is when Italy faced political and economic turmoil. And using this situation and the dissatisfaction of people, Mussolini was able to rise up the ranks of the politics in Italy. Soon we will see Mussolini leading his fascist movement and finally creating a fascist government. And then we will see his rise as a dictator. So in the next video, we will look at the fascist movement in detail. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon. You can also register for free at deltastep.com or download the DeltaStep app to learn one-to-one with our amazing teachers or to get access to all our 5,000 plus amazing videos as per your school syllabus. Master each topic with our adaptive practice technology. Get million plus questions with step-by-step solutions and unlimited mock tests. Get all your doubts resolved instantly. Learn via games and win amazing prizes like PlayStations and iPads. So at DeltaStep, learning is not just fun and easy, it is rewarding too. So register for free now.